Today, I wanted to cover what I have found to be the best Arc Warlock build in Destiny. This build allows for you to build your super incredibly fast, have insane ad clear and crowd control alongside having high damage from your super. With today's build guide, we'll be going over the subclass layout, exotics to use, stats to use, mods to use, and more. If you found today's video helpful, be sure to drop a like, but with that being said, I'm SniperKH and let's hop into the video. Let's start first by discussing the subclass layouts. The subclass layout that you'll want to copy is on screen now, but there is one major change made to the subclass that we need to discuss. For this build, we'll be using Storm Trance instead of Chaos Reach. The reason being is that Storm Trance was buffed in Renegades to increase its maximum sustained damage bonus from 50% to 65%. Additionally, the super will receive some big benefits from our chosen exotic armor piece, but more on that later. Outside of that change, everything will stay the same. I do want to highlight our aspects as these two are going to put in a lot of work for this build. Ionic Sentry will be a useful tool as it will boost our ad clear and crowd control capabilities, while also granting us easy access to Ionic Traces to generate our abilities back faster, and making sure we have constant access to Amplified, which will grant us a 15% damage resistance boost while it is active. Electrostatic Mine is a no-brainer for this build, as this will allow for us to generate our main abilities back faster, which will be useful for this build. For our fragment choices, I chose fragments that would grant us more benefits from using our abilities while also boosting our survivability. For the aspects, use Spark of Amplitude for easy orbs of power, Spark of Ions for even easier ionic traces, Spark of Discharge to grant our arc weapons that ability to generate ionic traces and to get the ability to earn bull charge stacks from ionic traces, and Spark of Resistance to grant us more damage resistance while we're surrounded. It's worth noting that depending on what weapons you choose for this build, you could consider replacing Spark of Resistance for Spark of Beacons, but we'll get to this a little bit later. When discussing the gear to use, there's only one exotic that is required for this build, with that exotic being Storm Dancer's Brace. Storm Dancer's Brace received a buff with this expansion that helps elevate this into the best Arc Warlock build. The buff now grants you bull charge every time your abilities damage a target, and you can now build the damage bonus this exotic grants Storm Trance from super hits rather than super kills, with the total stacks being increased while maintaining the same damage bonus. What this means is that when you activate your super and damage your target with the super, you'll be generating bull charge stacks and a stacking damage bonus, which increases the super's effectiveness massively. Turning our attention over to the weapons side of things, there isn't a required weapon to use, but I'd also recommend using Delicate Tomb with this build, as this weapon will get a damage boost from Ionic Traces while also generating Ionic Traces easily. If you do choose to use Delicate Tomb, I'd highly recommend switching Spark of Resistance out for Spark of Beacons, so this weapon can also blind on kills when you're amplified, as this will make this weapon far more effective. Moving on to armor stats, there's only two stats that you really should be focusing on, with those two being Super and Grenade. Focusing these two stats will improve their generation and damage massively, which is valuable to have with this build considering the fact that Storm Trance and Ionic Sentry are our two most important assets to this build. In terms of which stats to pay more attention to, I'd recommend Super, as this will boost your damage up to 45% at 200 points invested. Otherwise, focus Grenade, as this will boost our Ionic Sentry damage, allowing for these two abilities to shred combatants. Moving on to the mods for this build, we're going to use mods that will grant us benefits from Grenade and weapon kills. For our helmet, I'd recommend using 1 Ashes to Assets, 1 Super Fawn, and 1 Harmonic Siphon. The Ashes to Assets mod will grant us super energy on Grenade and Ionic Sentry kills, while Super Fawn will grant us 20 free points into our super stat while we have an armor charge active, which we'll get through Harmonic Siphon. That said, if you've hit 200 super without the Super Fawn mod, then switch it out for a second Ashes to Assets mod. For our gauntlets, use 1 Firepower, 1 Grenade Fawn, and 1 Harmonic Loader. Firepower will grant us an Orb of Power on Grenade or Ionic Sentry kill, allowing for us to get access to our Surge and Font mods. Grenade Font will also grant us 20 bonus points to our Grenade stat, while we have an Armor Charge active, allowing us to get bonus damage from this ability. Harmonic Loader is pretty self-explanatory, as it will allow for us to reload our arc weapons faster. For the chest mods, use whatever elemental mods will keep you alive longer in the activity you're running. For our boots, use 2 Innervation and 1 Arc Weapon Surge mods. Innervation will ensure that we get our grenades back even faster from Orbs of Power, increasing our ability uptime further. Arc Weapon Surge will be useful as it will buff our arc weapons damage by 10% while we have an active armor charge. For the class item, use Powerful Attraction, Time Dilation, and Reaper. For this build, using a mod like Bomber will be overkill, so we'll be using Powerful Attraction instead to suck in orbs for us. Time Dilation will also increase the duration of our Surge and Font mods from 10 to 15 seconds, letting us use them for longer. Reaper will also be great for this build as it will grant us another source of orbs of power to get our Surge and Font mods active. For the artifact, we'll get use out of the Gravitaic Voltaic Charge, Elemental Siphon, Dielectric, and Armorsmith mods. Moving on to the combat flow, it's very simple to follow. You want to start by throwing out your abilities, as ability kills will build charges for Ionic Sentry and will allow for us to start charging our abilities back faster. Once you've built Ionic Sentry, toss it into a high traffic area to get the most value out of it. You want to keep throwing abilities out and getting weapon kills until you generate your super, to which you should then use it on either ads or a boss to shred them. Once you've used your super, rinse and repeat to maximize this build's effectiveness. Overall, this build surprised me by just how strong it is. Arc Warlock has been dominated by Geomags for a while now, but with this build, Geomag's reign might have come to an end, but I'll let you decide that for yourself. If you found today's video useful, be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more Destiny 2 content dropping weekly. If you'd like to catch me live, then you can do so over at twitch.tv/SniperKH_, where I'll be streaming build crafting shenanigans. Otherwise, be sure to follow my other social media platforms for more content like the video you're seeing on screen now. My name is SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.